On average, service dogs need about 120 hours in the first 6 months of training. Having said that, don't overwhelm your dog. You want to make training as fun as possible. Just the dog being around you and not having treats or anything is essentially training, because they are learning what you want and what you expect them as just a dog in general, and like a nice behaved dog, as well as those manners will morph into better behaviors in training outings, like eventually Home Depot and other places. Before you take them home, you should also be puppy-proofing your house. The first day of service dog training should just be a chill day. The only thing you should be working on is socializing them to your house, as well as building your bond. The only thing you should be working on in day one, if you are going to be doing training, is rewarding them for laying down without being told to. Socialization of the day. Day 1 would be your house inside and outside. Day 2, other pets that you have or other pets in the neighborhood that are not aggressive at all. Day 3 would be harness and long line. Day 4 is a sweater or raincoat. Day 5 is a water bottle box. Day 6 is a ladder. And day 7 is a cardboard box toppling over. The first thing you need to train is introducing a clicker. I'll put my video in the description. Starting week 1, you want to introduce the different training methods that you're going to use. You want to train to sit, which for sit, I use a capture. For down, I try to shape, mostly because I would prefer the dog to do a fold down rather than a slide down, because the fold down is faster and it will work better for emergency stops while they're running later. The way to do this is by lowering them underneath your leg, into an under basically, and then fading out your leg and getting them to down without sliding. And for stand, I use a lure. You should also be working on focus and the basics of heel training. You want to lure them into heel position and then eventually taking one single step and then building onto two or three. You don't want to take it outside until you have at least 5 steps in order. You want to build it inside and then outside in your front yard or whatever's closest to your front door, and then keep building. The places to train this week: inside your house, outside your house, on your street or sidewalk if you have one, and a park. Make sure it's pet friendly. Plus, you want to make sure it's safe for the puppy. It's best to put them in a sling or a pet stroller, or if you could possibly find like a bike stroller, that could also work. You want to make sure they're safe and they can't get sick from all the vaccines that they aren't fully vaccinated to. Physical exercise. You should talk to your vet about what is the best appropriate age-wise for exercise and their needs, because every breed is different. Maximum training minutes for each training session. 5 minutes is the max in the beginning of 2 to 4 formal training sessions. That's when you're sitting down and we're going to introduce the clicker. We're going to introduce sit and down and stand and the basics of heel and focus. You don't want to burn out your puppy and be like, training is boring. And also, I only use dog food for inside the house and outside the house. For training sessions like the park, we will use dog treats, but we will phase those out later. You should be training for check-ins, which is going to be later for focus. Sit, down, and stand. For next week, we're going to start fading out the treats, but you want to at least do at least 3 training sessions at the park this week. Steps: you should find a appropriate park, letting them acclimate for 1 to 3 minutes. Click and treat for sitting, looking at you, down, and stand. 1 to 3 seconds is focused, 3 to 5 seconds is mildly distracted, 5 to 7 seconds is moderately distracted, and 7+ seconds is don't move from that spot until they are able to. And then starting your training timer, which is 15 seconds max, adding 5 minutes every 2 weeks into training sessions. You should also leave when the timer stops. Don't continue training. If they are behaving badly, like jumping or trying to chase things, pick them up and walk back to your car if you need to, and put them down on the ground. You have to leave on a good note, which means sitting and being comfortable. And if you don't move from your car, that's perfectly fine. You can add, within the 15 minutes, you can add time in a later training session rather than having to rebuild when they are pulling, jumping. And if your dog is in a stroller, working on sit and down is perfectly fine. Other things you want to work on this week are meeting 10 to 15 people calmly is important, because that way they're not jumping on people later in life. You want to feed their dinner in their cage, so that way you can work on crate training. You can train with their breakfast and lunch. I don't use treats inside my house or around my neighborhood, dog food only. Visiting 2 or 3 different parks, doing at least 2 different decompression or long line walks where you treat them for only looking at you. You don't want to train on these yet. That will come later. If the leash goes tight or they start pulling, plant your feet and don't move. 3 different half block heeling training sessions. Take it as slow as you need. If you only get a quarter of a block or like a house away, that's perfect, but you don't want to let them think that they can get away with pulling if you want them in heel, and you have to say heel. You want to work on positive play sessions. That includes the toy training game and getting them to play with 2 different toys at a time. You shake one toy and make the one toy like boring, and as soon as they flip to this one, after about 5 to 10 seconds, make that toy boring and make this one really exciting, and switch back and forth. That'll help with that will help with preventing resource guarding later on. You also want to help building their confidence in grooming and being handled. You want to start working on boundary training, which is waiting for things, like waiting for the cage to open, or waiting for their food, or waiting for you to go through the door first. They should have many different chewing outlets that they're allowed to chew on, because that will prevent them from chewing on things that you don't want, like shoes or handbags. The things that Luna gets are nylobones. That's mostly what we use, because they're less likely to harm her, and if she does eat at something, it's plastics and it'll go right through her. They should also be on a potty schedule. I'll put mine that I made in the description, and that's what I use for Luna, and she's fully potty trained and everything. She was fully potty trained at like 3.5 months, I want to say. You should also be working on preventing bad dog behaviors like play biting, potty training, crate training, resource guarding, barking, jumping, chewing, digging, chasing, separation anxiety, begging, and hand feeding. Hand feeding and toy sharing is very important, as this prevents resource guarding. The basics of potty training: you want to take them out every 2 hours before they sleep, right after they wake up, right after they eat or drink, and right after playtime. If they go to the bathroom inside, don't punish them or use the old things, which like rubbing their nose in it. Pick them up if you can, or 2 if they're still going, and take them outside so they finish outside, because they will stop while you pick them up. And if you can't, and they've already gone and you didn't even notice, then put them in their cage for 5 minutes, clean it up, wipe it up, and clean it with potty solution, and then let them out. And then after they are in the cage, after the 5 minutes, take them outside immediately, take them to their potty spot. By the way, you have to have a designated potty spot for them to go, so that way later on you can add a cue. Avoid using potty pads, as they can train the dog to go to the bathroom inside. Use a large playpen for times that you can't supervise them, and put potty pads in there if you have to, as well as a small drinking bowl and some toys. Steps: you should take them outside immediately and take them to the potty spot, and you should only have like a 6-foot radius, and don't move your feet. Read their body language, and as soon as you think they're going to go, say go potty or do your business. Those are Luna's cues, and they will eventually figure out that you saying that right before they go will go into you saying it before, and that will eventually be the cue for them to go to the bathroom. As soon as they finish going, give them a treat. If they do both, then you can take them on a short harness walk. Also, you should only be taking them to go to the bathroom on a harness and long line. So if they pull or ruin, you don't want them to ruin their heel training that you've been working on. If they don't go to the bathroom within 5 minutes, take them inside and put them in their cage for 5 minutes, and then retry. 5 minutes in the cage, 5 minutes outside, and go back and forth until they actually go to the bathroom. Play biting is absolutely normal and vital for them to develop the soft mouth or bite inhibition that they get when they get older. But many bites can be quite painful and require training for them to understand that it hurts. Step 1, if they start biting, say ouch, And if they let go, continue playing or start playing. If they do not let go, say ouch louder and a little bit more harsh, but don't scream at them, and get up and walk away. You have to leave. The dog is not allowed to leave by itself. You have to get up and leave them alone, so that way they understand that it hurt. After about a minute, you can go in and start playing again. After they understand that the harder bites hurt, you should also continue on working on the softer and softer, so that they understand that they're not allowed to bite you. Don't get discouraged. Often in dog training that things will get worse before they get better, and sometimes they just start back up again. If that happens, restart training. Crate training. Creating a positive association with the crate is vital for them to understand that it's their home. Putting dog food in there, like their dinner, will help them understand that that is their home, and also for them to feel more comfortable. You can also throw a shirt that you've been wearing or a pillowcase the first night, so that way you can start building on your bond, as well as for them to make them feel more comfortable while they're alone, because you have to realize that it's probably the first time they've been away from their siblings and their mom. You want to choose the right crate. Sometimes dogs prefer the crate covered. Some other dogs prefer it to be as open as possible. Luna prefers it to be more open, but I mean, right now she's fine with either, but I prefer it to be open so I can keep an eye on her. You want to use dividers. If you have a big cage, they should only be taking 2 to 3 steps, so that way they're not likely to use the bathroom in their cage. You can put a dog bed in there as long as you don't think they're going to rip it up, because if they rip it up, it can be a choking hazard. Also, you should not be putting a harness or a collar or leash on your dog while they're in the cage, because that can suffocate them, especially if they're not being supervised. Make them sleep in there all night. If they have to go to the bathroom, take them out to go to the bathroom for 5 minutes, bring them in, and then no more than you put them back in. There should be no playing, there should be no having fun, eating. There should just be putting them in the cage and going back to sleep. In the daytime, you should preferably only have them in there for short periods of time. If they are having problems with separation anxiety, you should stand up and pace back and forth, only like a couple of steps in the beginning, like 2 or 3. Gradually add more within 5 to 10 minutes. Just start adding more and more until you can get to the door, and then keep the door open, and then pace outside of the door, and then over multiple weeks, you should be able to close the door and pace outside the door and then open, just for them to be comfortable with being able to be in there alone without anybody or any dogs with them. Also, you want to be patient. It takes some time for dogs. Luna was perfectly fine. She didn't have any separation anxiety at all, but Stella, my last dog that I had, she had a problem with being in there alone. Preventing resource guarding. You should hand feed your dog at least once a meal a day until they are about 3 or 4 months old, as well as possibly having other people help you, so that way it will not only just be you, also maybe your mom or your sister will also help them preventing resource guarding around other people. You should play the 2-toy game. Don't feed more than 1 dog out of the same bowl. That will help prevent dog and dog resource guarding. If there are 2 dogs, there needs to be 2 bowls. If there are 3 dogs, there needs to be 3 bowls. They can eat out of the same bowl if there's more than 1 bowl. If they eat all this one and they go to the next one, don't free feed. If there starts to be any problems either with the new puppy or the older dog, go to an animal behavioralist immediately. Don't allow puppies to take things from older dogs. If the puppy is out of line, don't reprimand the dog that growls or barks or anything, because that can make the situation worse. Just discipline the puppy by putting them in the cage and see an animal behavioralist if any other aggression or it becomes a normal problem. Barking is also a normal dog behavior. Dogs can bark for many reasons. That includes demand barking, barking when alone, being spooked, or boredom barking. As soon as the dog starts barking, you should grab your clicker and wait for the smallest amount, like a millisecond, that your dog stops barking. And if they stop barking, click and treat. Charge your clicker before. If their head snaps in your direction, click and treat. If it doesn't, work on building the clicker more and saying their name. You should also say quiet after they are head is snapping towards you. That will build on a cue before you click eventually, but you don't want to rush it. Eventually the word quiet will be the cue for them to look at you while they're barking. After about 5 seconds, you can give them a treat and slowly fade out the treat after. Jumping, step on the leash if people are coming and walking towards you and you are not ready for training. Train them to look at you by clicking and treating when they look at you. Set up training sessions. Have a person stand 25 to 30 feet away from you and wait for the dog to calm down and click and treat, and give them a cue to sit. If they do click and treat and then move on to a down, after they are successful, have the person walk 2 to 3 steps, and hopefully they stay laying down. If they don't, have the person back up. If the dog doesn't calm down within 30 seconds, have the person back up because they are too far forward. And after remaining treating sessions, the person should start being able to walk faster, or you are able to start walking towards them. You don't want to do both at once. You want to be able to build on good progress instead of having to tear it down later when everything is falling apart, when you're walking towards them and they're walking towards you at the fast pace and it's just too much. Preventing them from chewing on any of the things you don't want to chew is the best course of action. Put the dog on an 8-foot leash that is attached to you. That way you can watch them. Your eyes are on them, and if they get into trouble, you can see that. Put them into a playpen if you can't watch them with your eyes 100%. Put things away you really don't want them chewing on, like expensive shoes, so that way they can't ruin it, and that way it doesn't sour your bond. The dog should have at least 2 different chewing options, like an nylabone or a Kong. Stop them from chewing on something you don't want and give them something that is appropriate for them, like the nylabone or Kong. Do not give them old socks or shoes. That will morph into them chewing the socks and shoes that you do want. Daily exercise. Let them choose the level of exercise they feel like that day, either that's walking or running. Keep an eye on them, as well as make sure you're in a safe environment, like a harness and long line, so that way they can't escape. For digging, making sure they're not bored helps, like a Kong wobbler, a licking mat, a sniffing mat, a well-stuffed Kong with like peanut butter, treats, bananas, and then a biscuit sticking out, or yogurt, or anything. There's a bunch around the internet. You can just look them up, as well as decompression walks, mental exercise like training, playing hide and seek, a kiddie pool with water, an agility course, or helping them like stay cool, because a lot of dogs will dig and then lay in it because they're too hot. You should be careful playing hide and seek if you are having problems with chasing, because if you are running away from them while hiding, that will make it worse. Possibly having 2 to 3 different people playing will help, so that way you can walk as slow as you need to for your dog to be successful. You should also step on the leash if you have a stray cat walking towards you, or a bunny. That way they don't get loose and start chasing and you will never be able to pick them up or catch them. You should also work on training them to look at you if around distractions, playing the disengage and engage game. You can add other distractions such as stray cats, wildlife, leaves, flags blowing up high and down to the ground. In the first week, you shouldn't be working on any begging. If they are begging at all, you should just be putting them in the cage, so that way you're not ruining the bond. But later on, you should be able to have them lay at your feet, whether that means you stepping on the leash. Also, when you're stepping on the leash, you want it to be a harness. You don't want to choke them. If you are having problems with them begging, you can train a leave it cue or a head down cue. Luna just have to leave it. I can drop food around her and she's perfectly fine. We haven't worked on head down yet, mostly because I'm working on other things. Greeting people calmly. You want to practice a sit, as well as the jumping and pulling on the leash. Ask the person to ignore the dog at first while you are setting up, and then have them far away and be able to walk closer and closer. You should be able to, for them to come close to you and then shake your hand and then walk away. You want to work on that before moving at all. If you want them to go say hi, you give the release word before they are able to say hi. They have to be calm and stay sitting for at least 10 seconds before you say go say hi or go make friends. If the dog jumps up, you grab the leash and walk away in the other direction. The dog is not allowed to jump at all. They're allowed to keep all 4 paws on the floor and say hi as long as you say it's okay. If the dog breaks before you say go say hi or make friends, say let's go and turn without letting them say hi at all. While you're picking your park, you want to be able to choose the park carefully. Make sure there are no cars that they can get hit. Make sure that it's safe because they are unvaccinated puppies. So make sure you are either holding them or you know for 100% sure that there are no possibilities that the dog can get sick. You should be able to see other people around. We did ours in the winter, so no one is around, but you want to be able to make sure that they're socializing to other things in the park area, like swings, possibly balloons, strollers, bikes, skateboards, anything that is at the park. You should have a warm-up routine that includes sit, down, stand, name recall. You should stay by your car at first and then take a couple steps. You will find in dog training that after you realize that it's just either manipulating one of the 3 Ds, which is duration, distance, and distractions. That means only picking one thing at a time that you can work on, which means if there's a bunny, you're not moving. You're not going to walk away in the beginning. You're just going to stand there and wait for them to look at you, click, and treat. That you want to work on one thing at a time.